we as African people or black people have been told many things by many people about our history. But we ourselves have not done the proper historical documentation that need to be in the area of nutrition. Why is it so important? Well, you know, as we go into this thing that we call healing, history again becomes the vehicle that we're going to use to travel towards that goal that we're looking for. We are looking for a goal because we're sick. Something that we didn't have in our environment. So, healing, in entertaining the subject, one has to remember that it has to be tied to the cosmic procession. Healing has to be consistent with life itself. If it isn't, then it's not healing. The components has to be from life. So we go into this historical thing, this journey back into the past to find what was it that was really happening in Africa, what was occurring. Well, we could begin with that black woman, Mama. You know, the black woman that many countries has like identified her as being a savage. When they first saw her without any clothes, everybody was amazed. This woman is naked. Not that she's natural, she is naked. But she didn't know that. My mama didn't know that she was naked. That is the way she was since creation. The natural way to be. But the foreigners saw her as a savage. And many of us, her children, we also collaborate. And we think that it is correct, the way that we see her. And we, her children, also say she was a savage. You know the PhD professor with his suit and his tie, when he's told that his beginning began with a black woman without no clothes, it's embarrassing. It's what, like Mr. Hamid Blewett said to us, shame takes over. I am ashamed of my history because it began with a naked woman in the forest of Africa. But that naked woman was more than just an image that you saw in your eyes that was running around crazy. She was saying that we could live without any clothes. My mama could live without any clothes in the forest of Africa, and she could walk around and nobody was jumping on her. Well, was she a savage? Or was she showing that she lived in a highly ethical and moral society? You know the conversation that I had in Brazil where the Russian said, hey, before you say something about your people, just remember that your mama didn't have any clothes on just 500 years ago. I said, but Mladinov, why did you stop without no clothes? What do you mean? I said, but you're saying that my mama didn't have any clothes on 500 years ago. but she didn't have any supermarkets, and she didn't have any doctors. She didn't have any hospitals. She did not have any disease. Mama didn't have any clothes on. That's all. Well, Mama didn't have alcohol. Mama didn't have any drugs. Mama didn't have any money. And by the way, we are going to go into it a little bit more. You see what happened? Like everything else that's occurring today in this 20th century, we misinterpret. We black people, we have been vulnerable to the research that others has done about our mama. But as we look closer, we find that mama was ethical and moral and shameless. I wish that we could do that now if we think that she was a savage. And tell your woman today to walk the streets without no clothes on and see who is the savage. So as we leave that part of mama where she shows that she was highly ethical and that she lived in a very beautiful environment with her brothers and her sisters.
Check where God placed me. In Africa. And while I was home, I did not have any alcohol. Did not have any money. I did not have prostitution. Did not have jails. I did not have lawyers and judges. I did not even wear clothes that were so clean. My mind was so clean that my woman didn't need no clothes on her body. Because when I talk to my woman now, do I talk to her vagina or I talk to her eyes? What do you talk to when you talk to another individual in front of you? You talk to eyes, isn't it? So if your head is clean, the person should have no clothes on and you would not see any nakedness. You talk to eyes. That's how clean we were. Now, and then, we had no clothes, wore no clothes, and there were no rapes. There could be no rapes because we were cosmically in tune. We live according to the dictates of life itself. And animals just don't have sex every day. Now where did we learn this one from? And I remember when I used to get mad at my wife when she didn't give it up. But women just aren't like that. Women are more in tune than we men are. So here we are now, violating.
It was you. Next.
I've been treated by you before and was very successful with it. But I'm a backslider and I want to know what is the cure for AIDS so I can get back on track.
She said that I treated her before and that she was cured, but something happened. I don't know. She wanted to get back on track. And the next question about how do I cure AIDS? Well, I have a daughter now that's 21, and she's the key to beautiful things. She's the daughter of this woman. Her mother hated me, and with all rights. The woman was right. Oh God, she was right. But years went by. No, she got a baby. She got pregnant. They kicked her out of the house. But that's okay. She had the baby, little girl, Zave. Zave grew up. Zave was 19. She cured her mother, her grandmother, of diabetes. The little girl that this woman didn't want to come into the world grew up to cure her of diabetes. Last month I got a notice from the mother that Zave just killed a woman in New York of AIDS. How do we cure AIDS? It's simple. We put the compounds together to address the mucous membrane, to cleanse the mucous membrane, to cleanse the bowels. Simultaneously, we went to the forest and found the herbs such as over here on the alkali side, sarsaparilla is an herb that has the highest concentrate of iron. Fluorine, iron. Guaco, that is a plant that has, I thought I had a stick with me because I'm always chewing on it. This is guaco. Guaco is a plant that would definitely strengthen the immune system because it is iron again. But it has potassium iodide, no, potassium phosphate, not iodide. Iodide comes from the ocean. Kankansa, that's an African plant. Kankansa is an African plant. This plant has one of the highest concentrate of what? Potassium phosphate. Those are just few of the plants. We use about 40 some odd plants to cleanse the body, strengthen the immune system, and electrify the system, because you want to electrify the body. That's how simple we cure AIDS. We cure AIDS. We don't treat AIDS. This thing here says that Moringa said, and they keep repeating it, that they uses it with the belief that it's going to cure. They think, oh no, we got to stop talking like that. We cure. That's how we got to start talking. If you don't cure, get out of the way. Because you're lying to people. Next question.
In 1979, I think it was, you were charged in New York City with practicing medicine without a license. You were ultimately charged, indicted, and taken before the New York Supreme Court. And I would advise my viewers who might be questioning your authenticity that you won that case. Now, so the charge was practicing medicine without a license and claiming that you had a remedy to cure AIDS, cancer, and diabetes. So the question is, how did you win that case against what some people say are the toughest prosecutors in the land?
Well, it was 1987.
87, not 79, 87.
The 10th of February.
Okay.
My mother knew they were coming. When I told my mama that I had cured my 13 AIDS patient, she said, "They're gonna get you. They're gonna get you."
So let me stop you there. You said I cured my 13 AIDS patients.
Yeah.
So you had 13 patients
Yeah.
who had AIDS.
Yeah.
And then you say
you
cured them.
Sure.
Keep talking.
So my mother said, "They're gonna get you." I said, "But Mom, why are they gonna get me?" Because you must remember that you live in a society that supports a certain philosophy and a certain system. You being the color that you are, black, and then you're going against the grain, they're going to get you. So when I'm in my office on February the 10th, here come the detectives. You are charged with practicing medicine without a license, selling product not approved by the FDA, and claiming to cure AIDS and other diseases. Mm-hmm. I said, yes. Well, you are making a fraudulent claim. Mm-hmm. I asked the detective, how do you know that?
Because you were advertising in newspapers.
Of course. I advertised in the Village Voice, the Amsterdam News, and the New York Post.
And you were telling people through your advertising that you can cure
AIDS, sickle cell, lupus, herpes, blindness, diabetes, paralysis, and others.
Okay, so they come knocking on the door and
so knocked on my door and took me to jail. But the funny thing about it, I was happy. I was very, very, extremely happy. When everybody in my office was crying, I was happy because my mama told me they were coming. And I knew that I had sufficient evidence to prove my position. Not only scientifically, empirically, historically, and whatever way they would desire. So while I was in jail, I'm saying, I wonder what defense they would have against me.
Yeah.
I would like to know. But I didn't blame the Attorney General, Mr. Robert Abrams, because why should he accept from me the statement that I cure AIDS and sickle cell
Yeah.
and blindness
Yeah.
when no one else has ever made those claims? The man had a right to arrest me, but he was making a mistake. So I'm sitting in jail, and I'm happy. When I got out of jail and when I went in front of the judge, I asked 3 questions.
And they were?
They were, Your Honor.
You defended yourself.
Of course I did.
Okay.
Your Honor, is it a fact that the Holy Bible teaches that the herbs are for the healing of the nations? She said, yes. Is it a fact that science shows that the human body is carbon-based, and to complement a carbon-based body, you must have a carbon-based substance to complement it, because the body only accepts the substance through the process of chemical affinity. Chemical affinity is important. It's an electrical transfer. Chemical affinity.
Okay.
The body could only accept what it is made of, not something new or alien to it. Last question. Your Honor, is it a fact that the father of medicine, Mr. Hippocrates, the man that established the principle of medical science today, cured every disease known to man? Did he use herbs or chemicals? She said, herbs. I said, thank you very much. I rest my case.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I understood that the state were unprepared to defend itself. They were unprepared because in the past there was 2,781 cases that came before the Supreme Court and lost.
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah.
Not only did I prove scientifically, but I had the diagnostic sheets, and I do have them today. And those diagnostic sheets didn't come from me. They came from their school, their American medical accredited school.
Did I read it correctly where there was some requirement for you to actually bring patients, a patient into court from each of those maladies, and that you brought multiple patients in court who, one, testified themselves, and that you had medical records, one showing that they were victims of the disease, and then showing that it had been cured by one doctor, and then a second doctor verifying what the first doctor had said?
Yes. We have to remember this, that whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. You better be prepared. The judge said that I had to bring one of every patient that I had cured, and there was one that said others. The others was a man that came from Italy. He was paralyzed. But I was supposed to take 9. I took 77.
You took 77 patients in court with you?
That's correct. But I knew that my brain was not the same as your brain or any other brain, right? We're unique.
Yeah.
So when I make a statement, they're going to take my statement and pit it against philosophy. It doesn't fit. I represent an entity that isn't philosophical.
And that entity is?
Well, it is an African one. I'm an African. And we have to remember that. You see, we think that we could take a philosophy out of Europe or China and inculcate that into the African brain. It does not resonate. It cannot resonate. You cannot be yourself when you've been adulterated. Being that I am an African, I'm going to look at things the African way. And the African way seemed to reduce things to the least common denominator. And guess what I found? That there's only one disease, not two, not three, one. When I opened my big black mouth and told the judge that, oh my God. What did you say? I said, Your Honor, there's only one disease.
And what is
Could
that?
you substantiate that?
Uh-huh, okay.
Of course, I'm not going to just deploy a bunch of empty words. I represent a country. I represent a people. I represent a race. And I represent myself. I'm not going to undermine myself. There's only one disease. The judge said, what is it? I said, you already know. She said, try me. It was a woman, Ann Thelman. I said, Your Honor, when someone has sinusitis, what is obstructing the nasal passage? She said, mucus. And when another has bronchitis, what is obstructing the bronchial tubes? She said, mucus. And when another has pneumonia, what's covering the cells of the lungs? She said, mucus. Dr. Victor Herbert, who is defending the state of New York, jumped up and said, what about AIDS? You and your one disease theory? I said, Your Honor, this doctor is saying that I believe in a theory. I am the last individual on earth that could believe in a theory. I do not lend myself to theories or philosophy. Either I know or I don't know.
Okay.
He's talking about theories.
Yeah. You talking about the real deal.
I'm talking about reality, not theories, not philosophy.
So please share with this.
So she said, and what about AIDS?
Yeah.
I said, well, he asked about what about AIDS? He want to know where the mucus. I said, Your Honor, have you been to an AIDS ward? She said, yes. I said, what is it that the AIDS spits up every 5 minutes? She said, mucus. Where is the mucus? It's in the skin, it's in the blood, and the lymphatic system that makes up the immunological system. That is where you find the mucus, Mr. Victor Herbert. How could you agree with, how can you disagree with truth? You see, what happened, I didn't go to school. I have never been to school. I have never attended any school, kindergarten, grade school, high school, or anything. But I had parents that kept me anchored to the African way, not to the Chinese way, not to the European way, not to the Japanese way. I am an African.
Were your patients all of color?
No, no. I have patients that are white. I have more white patients than I have black.
Okay, so this scourge that, has just run rampant, through the world, AIDS. Can you walk us through as much as you can a step-by-step process where you have a patient that has AIDS and you do XYZ or ABC, and then the patient no longer has AIDS? Can you walk us through that?
Of course. When the first patient was a brother in Boston named Michael White, and a sister, she's from D.C. Her name is, oh boy, I forgot her name right now.
Okay.
But she told me, she said, Dr. Sebi, my brother-in-law brother has AIDS in Boston. So what do you do? I said, well, I must send him the compound. The compound that I made were made to cleanse the cells. Okay. They come in the category of phosphates, carbonates, iodides, and bromides. Now we are entering the science of biochemistry. Okay. These are food and vitalizers. I remove from the man's diet lactose, uric acid, and carbonic acid, milk, starches, and meat. By removing these things from his diet and then cleansing his cells, he began to see recovery in 24 hours. And so it went. They kicked him out of the hospital 2 weeks later. Memorial Hospital in Boston, Dr. Bonanno. Then there was a young man in D.C., Zelma Peterson is her name.
Yeah.
Zelma Peterson.
Yeah.
She was the one that introduced me to my second AIDS patient, and from then it was all the way alive.
Okay. Now, you have documented.
I got proof now.
You have proof.
Books with the documents in it, diagnostic sheets.
Yeah. And the medical world still puts out that you are a quack, you're a crazy man, you're not credentialed, and that you run scams on people. But you have documented proof of healing people. Now, I know that you have you reference a compound in Honduras. You also operate out of Los Angeles also. So when you get a patient now, if you have a DC patient, does that DC patient need to go to LA or Honduras? Or?
No, we treat them. In fact, we send 1,000 packages a day throughout the world right now. Israel, Hong Kong, China, Russia. We have people in the village now from Russia. We have people from all over the world. We send packages all over the world. You don't have to even be in Honduras. But it is good to go to Honduras because the thermal waters are there.
Yeah.
And they accelerate the process of healing. Once you immerse your body in it and you drink it.
You speak of Honduras.
Now, about the medical science saying that I'm a quack.
Yeah.
I do not blame medical science for making that statement. Because my race has never done anything on that level of endeavor to express itself able to cure diseases on that level, in other words. So, sure, I'm a quack, but I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
What I was concerned with, not medical science, because I know that they're the one that is violating. I am not the violator. Hippocrates did not establish the school of medicine by using chemicals, because the chemicals cannot assimilate. A chemical cannot assimilate with the human body. An herb can, because they are electrical.
Yes, sir. Dr. Sebi, explain to the people watching this tape the word electricity, and how it pertains to its necessity boundaries within the body structure.
Now, you see? Now, that was the best question that could have been asked. Why? Because if something is of usefulness in my structure, in my biological structure, it must necessarily be electrical. And the only substance that is electrical, that are electrical, are those substances that come from the forest we call the jungle. Because the molecular structure is complete, it's not broken. If something is made by Mother Nature, one could easily use the common sense and see where this stuff is natural, is complete. But if something is made in the laboratory, well, naturally, common sense again shows us it could not be of usefulness. Each mineral on the planet, iron has 12,000 electrons per atom, calcium has 9,000, opium has the specific amount, and so it goes through the whole ramification of life. 142 minerals expresses themselves in a different way because that is necessary to maintain continuity, to maintain that individuality of each plant. The bones is calcium, not the blood. The blood is iron. Now we go back to the question of melanin. Wouldn't it be intelligent to ask one of the promoters of melanin, what is the electromagnetic structure of melanin? What is the amount of electrons per atom that represent this thing we call melanin? Why do we ask the question? Because it is necessary.
We want to know, is this thing electrical? Yes. Well, if it is electrical, it has to have a definite amount of electrons per atom, representing that particular thing.
Okay, let me to ask you on that same subject. Let's say the generator that gives us electricity here in this city was cut off, and we wanted to get more electricity. What would we do? Would we stick one in the ground, or how would we work?
Stick what in the ground?
A wire.
No. What produces electricity?
Electrons.
No way. I was an electrician. I am an engineer. I work in what you call steam generating plants. I have a degree, I have a license in what is known as thermodynamics. We are dealing with physics now. The only thing that produces electricity, the only thing that produces electricity is the friction of copper and carbon. That could be seen in your automobile. Take out your generator and see what it has inside. It has a copper wheel and some carbon brushes that touches against it when it turns. Here's an example. This is the copper wheel in the generating plant that produced the electricity in this room. It is spinning at only 90 revolutions per minute, but against this copper wheel there are carbon brushes, and this is what you see. The spinning of the copper wheel against the carbon brush creates a friction. That friction is called resonance. Resonance is electricity, not electrons. Resonance. The resonance produces the electrons, not before. So now, if electricity is produced by copper and carbon, the friction of copper and carbon, then where do we go in the human body and find the organ that produces electricity? We find that it's the brain. The brain is the center of motor. The nervous system is the conduit that carries the electricity to various points of the body to cause motion. Now, should we ask, what is the composition of the brain? No. It is made up of what? Carbon and copper. The pineal gland is carbon, and the cerebral cortex, copper. We not only find that in a human being, we find that in the eel in Brazil that produces electricity to kill his prey. And when you open the eel, all you find is copper and carbon. No melanin.
Well,
Above all, we must make sense. It is necessary that we make sense. We don't want to regurgitate words that are loaded, but it never make sense. Like, for instance, nutrition. The word nutrition will be discussed today. We show how genetics dictates our nutrition. Now, this should have been shown to us, ever since we were removed from Africa. This should have been shown to us by our historians and ecclesiasticians. Why does it have to come from an herbalist? From an individual that has no credibility in the community. An individual that's looked upon as a voodoo doctor, as a persona non grata. That is the position that the healer has been placed by today's society. Yet, as we look carefully at our Bible, it says that the herbs is for the healing of the nations. The herbs are for the healing of the nations. In Genesis, in Ezekiel, and Revelation, that you would not make any mistakes in the first, middle, and last.
what is melanin and what is carbon? Tell us about those two minerals. or whatever they are?
Melanin is not a mineral.
Okay.
Melanin is a word that was used to describe a certain biological function. But that particular identification or category or thing, melanin, is a European identification of what they think activates those neurons in our body that makes us black. But when you break down our body, our biological structure, into what we would have to put it in, which is chemistry, biochemistry, melanin has no place. It's not to be found. What is found in the body that is attributed to melanin is carbon. Carbon not only determines the quality of life in black folks, carbon determines the quality of life in every living plant that exists that is natural. If carbon is absent, there's no life. Melanin, what is it? I don't know.
Why are white people trying to get some? It's a Greek word, melanos.
Well, white folks talk about protein. What is protein? They say one of the 19 amino acids, the building blocks of life. But I know for a fact that that is not a true statement. Because protein, if it was the building block of life, what happened to the gorilla that lives 180 years without eating anything that contains protein? Unless they're going to say that the plants contain protein too. They're always saying things, and because we have no laboratories
Thank you, Chief.
to investigate those things, then we have to swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Miss Frances Welsing mentioned melanin. And I asked her, what is this thing? And I know she could not adequately answer the question because she was trained by someone European. So when you are trained by a European and told these things, you have to regurgitate these things. But no, they are completely in error.
Okay, we're going to take a little break for the phone.
We have to be careful. Remember, it is like a brother recommended that you use comfrey for your bones. That is in the books. That is justified from a European philosophical base. But when you look at the comfrey bit, you find that comfrey contains starch, which makes it acid. Again, another European philosophy. Melanin falls under the same category. It is a belief, not a reality. I was told in Washington, D.C. that I was violating one of the most sacred code or law of nutrition when I deprive Achilles trout of protein. So I asked Dr. Steinberg and Dr. Glutt at the Georgetown Pediatric Hospital, did you give her protein 5 times a day? You did. Was she under your care for 2 years? Yes. Now, she did not receive any of those things that you call protein, and she no longer has sickle cell anemia. So where is the validity of this thing we call protein? Is it equity or is it deficit? We don't know. This is why Dr. Sebi, when he embarked on this journey of healing, many was asking me, well, why are you so concerned with the scientific aspect of this thing? I say it is necessary not to heal. To heal, it is necessary to understand the scientific aspect of it. But you must understand the herb that corresponds with the disease that is manifesting. And the only way you could do that in the Western world, and to prove that you would be respected as someone that could be of usefulness, is to enhance oneself with the words that describe certain things. And that is the science of biochemistry. I had to, because my challenges would be from a scientific base. And if I didn't understand science, then I would be lost. And they would gain momentum when they should not. So I decided to go into the scientific understanding of these things we call herbs. And what we found, that there is nothing on the planet that assimilate and could be of usefulness, save that substance is electrical. And the only electric substance on the planet is a natural plant. Not comfrey, golden seal, peppermint, aloe vera, and the rest. They're hybrids. But how many brothers and sisters in America or anywhere in the world qualifies to offer a challenge when we have nothing to test that which we are given for validity? No, I do not subscribe to melanin or to comfrey. So we have to again go back to the drawing board. The USHA research disregard the word melanin. For instance, if melanin determined life, why is it then that when people come to us with nerve problems, with energy problems, we give them the substance known as iron, which is a mineral. Straining that iron with carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. The CHO chain is the chain of life. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Melanin has no place in that biochemical structure. So I'm very extremely sorry.
Okay. Let me ask you a question then. What makes the difference between black and white then? Why is it you're colored and there's somebody else who's not colored, of color?
Well, again, we could easily explain that position. Carbon is the determining factor for your color. The concentration of carbon determines the color black. The higher the concentration of carbon, the greater the color black would express.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
It is carbon, nothing else.
Excellent. Sister Naima was saying that we cure AIDS. Sure we do. Not only AIDS. It is difficult for us at this point to understand or even to think that AIDS could be cured, and especially by a black man. AIDS is not being cured by a black man. AIDS has not been cured by me. AIDS has been cured by God. You see, we have been playing with philosophy. We have been playing with mathematics. If you ask anyone who has been to school, they will tell you that mathematics is a complete science. Everyone would say that. It is a complete science. If mathematics was a complete science, everything built by it crumbles. What happened? Everything made by it crumbles. It has to. Because the creator of mathematics is only a product of life itself. So how could he come with a structure or something to add to life procession? Then we are saying that life needed mathematics to exist for life to perpetuate herself. No, life was here trillions and billions of years before mathematics came into existence. How did life support itself without mathematics? How did the African live in the jungles of Africa with lions and elephants and giraffes and a whole lot of snakes? How did they live without mathematics? And did they live healthy? These questions need to be asked. We need to ask these questions if we are to travel into the 21st century healthy. Because if we begin to take inventory and measure from where we are Where we are now, compared with that of our forefathers, we are at a deficit. We are at a gross deficit, in which, when we reach the 70, we're satisfied. No. Our ancestors lived hundreds of years, and there are people on this planet that I have visited throughout the world that live over 140 years on the average, not an individual out of 10,000. I am talking about the average. I came back to New York once and I told someone that men in certain villages of South America fathered children in their hundreds. And then the man said that he had the milkman helping him. He had to say that. Of course he had to say that, because from his perspective, it was all over with. So therefore, he assumed that everyone lived in that world with him. No. No, 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 no. Each and every one of us in this room this evening, we are different. We see things different. We're not better. How could I be better than any one of you here? Didn't we came from the same gene pool? Didn't we all came from the same gene pool? So we don't want these mathematical words to interfere with this journey, because if we use them, we're going to be at a deficit this evening, like for instance, better or worse, good and bad, inferior or superior. No, we have to throw that stuff out, because in the forest, that simply does not exist. In life itself, it does not exist. Like for instance, if we are to use the word good and bad, superior and inferior, then would we say that the soil is inferior to the rain, or water inferior to fire, or superior? Aren't they all necessary? Aren't they all needed? Would we say that our liver is less important than our heart, or that our fingers are less important than the kidneys? Can't say that. Because everything that was given to us on our body by Creator was for specific use.
Okay, so I'm at the USHA village right now in La Ceiba, Honduras, and we got word this morning that master healer, herbalist, our brother, friend, and father, Baba Dr. Sebi, passed this morning while in a hospital here in Honduras. He was transferred to the hospital after being held in prison for a few weeks now here in Honduras, and I won't get into the details about why he was being held in prison, but we do have a lot of questions about the way that he was being treated when he was transferred to the hospital for pneumonia. He developed pneumonia while he was in the prison, and his symptoms and his condition escalated while he was there, and he was taken to the hospital. And like I mentioned, we don't know how he was treated once he got to the hospital. And I really just make this video to say that it's a very sad day, but it's also a day that we need to reflect on Dr. Sebi's legacy. We need to remember what Dr. Sebi stood for, all of the work that he did. And we know that Dr. Sebi centered holistic wellness and alkaline diet in maintaining optimal health. But more than that, more than curing people of diseases that Western medicine tells us are incurable, Dr. Sebi also centers African people's wellness and descendants of Africans in his work. Dr. Sebi discussed in his work how people from Africa, because of our specific DNA, need a specific type of food to maintain optimal wellness. So he was one of the few master healers and herbalists in our generation and in the world that centered African people. That's a very powerful, rare work. And so So while we're very sad that Dr. Sebi is passed, we also need to reflect on how to continue the work, how to maintain his legacy, how to make sure that we continue to build and uphold places like USHA here, like USHA. We need to make sure that people have access to resources, access to foods, access to herbs that will heal them of whatever dis-ease they have, whatever disorder they have, knowing that they do not need to depend on Western medicine in all of its antiquated and fallacious ways that they fool people into thinking that you need to pump harmful drugs into your system to pacify symptoms of the illness instead of attacking the foundation or the origin of the illness in your body, which is whatever type of cells that are at that point cancerous or ill or inflamed. Dr. Sebi's work was amazing, and it will live on, and we will make sure that we uphold his name, uphold his legacy, uphold his teachings, and continue the work. Ashe. Ashe.
The man known as Dr. Sebi claims to have found the cure for several life-threatening diseases, including AIDS. Too good to be true? Well, you be the judge. The lump in Myrtle Rick's left breast is gone.
I haven't had any symptoms or problems or anything.
Sabrina Peterson's son no longer disabled by sickle cell anemia.
He has a lot of energy. I have to make him rest.
Disease is cured by this man. His name is Dr. Sebi, but you won't find a medical degree hanging from his wall. Instead, a certificate of healing.
We have complex things with science, but if we go back to God and use the herbs as God said, then you can see how simple it is. Then
Dr. Sebi believes what ails you can be cured with natural alkali herbs and a vegetarian diet solely made up of what he calls electric foods, mushrooms, greens, and rye breads without starch.
Hippocrates established the principle of medical science by using herbs to cure diseases, then why the physician using the chemicals? That package is an intracellular chelation. I'm removing plaque from the system. I'm removing inflammation. That is the base for all disease.
And according to a medical affidavit provided by Dr. Sebi, it's working. It shows a patient diagnosed with HIV in November of 1993 was cured 2 months later.
I've been called many things, but I am known as Dr. Sebi, your brother. But in my life, it began with Mama Hay. That's my nickname, acquired from my grandmother that I was always with. My grandfather was a Haitian. My grandmother from Belize. But these two hooked up nice because all they talk about was Africa. Africa, Africa, Africa. I grew up listening to Africa, about Africa. And I learned to like Africa. I hear this African descendant. I don't know who is an African descendant. I am an African or not? What is it? I am an African. My DNA is not an African descendant. It's African. But because philosophy seem to have risen to a height that eclipses all that which is natural. Africa, representing the natural, doesn't look too encouraging. It doesn't look palatable, doesn't taste right. Because when I see it, you know, these brothers are jumping around without no clothes on. Yep, they're running around without any clothes. But if you carelessly misinterpret that, you will find yourself at a deficit. You see the body breathe through the skin, not only the nostrils. When you take your clothes off, you immediately relax. It doesn't cost any money. But I am subjected to the philosophy of the existing times. I was told that I was a sinner and a savage, and that I dance in fire. All this was said about me. And I am listening to all of this all through my life. And do you know that I have never heard anyone in the field of anthropology, archaeology, paleontology, that really describes the African the way he should be described, but a Mexican. A Mexican is going to talk about Africa the way that I have never heard. So I grew up with this Africanness in me, not able to put it in any perspective because everybody is anti-Africa. It was about Herodotus and Pliny. It was about philosophy. And Africa didn't have a philosophy. What do you mean? They cannot compete. Compete in what? And why they needed a philosophy. So I grew up hoping that one day I would be able to see beyond the negative. And boy, did that day come. That day came. It came in the form of a dream. And I began to pay attention. Remember when they said to us, honor thy mother and thy father? Well, where did our mother and father came from? The jungles of Africa. But what did they say about the jungles? It's nasty. It's dangerous. But in reality, it is clean. It is alkali. It is electrical. So yes, I have turned my eyes on Africa and I have learned a lot and still learning. But again, being severed from Mama, we take on this philosophical expression. Yeah, that's where the breakdown begins. I cannot live by the dictates of that naked woman in the forest of Africa. I have to live by the dictates of the philosophy of Socrates and Plato, Diogenes, John Stuart Mills, Spinoza. All these people I am supposed to know about. Why? I don't know. But I have been led there. And my friends would use that against me because I haven't done any research in the area of philosophy, because I'm not interested in philosophy then nor now. I am interested in life.